All right, we have one of my favorite all-time speakers, and I'm actually going to start off by saying something. Jack, years ago, back in 2007, 17 years ago, pulled me aside after seeing me speak and said, Cameron, your content was great, but you were boring. And what you need to remember is that for every single person in that audience, it's opening night for them. It's the opening night performance, and you need to either change your content or change your performance. Jacques will not have to change his performance. He has been speaking all over the world for about 30 years. I've seen him at least a dozen times. He's blown me away. So Jacques is a leading sales speaker and trainer with over 30 years of sales and executive experience. His track record is a testament to his real-world knowledge and extensive expertise in sales and sales management. He started his professional journey at CPA firm Arthur Andersen and rose to the CEO level of several companies, building 6 companies into national firms, and along the way, 2 of which subsequently sold to Wall Street firms of Solomon Brothers and First Boston. Jack is a BA in accounting and MBA and was captain in the U.S. Army. He's an Amazon best-selling author. He's written and contributed to many books, including Hyper Sales Growth and the Sales Playbook for Hyper Sales Growth. Jack is also a 15-time Ironman competitor and has completed over 93 marathons in 50 states and on 7 continents. He was born in Philly, now resides in San Clemente, California. Today, he's our presenter. He's going to drop some bombs in for all of us to give us some better lives and to help us, hopefully on the sales side too. Jack, the floor is yours.
Hey, listen, thanks for having me. And look, the world knows me for my sales acumen. The world knows me for giving guidance on how to build businesses. But the most recent book that I published, which was about a year and a half ago, is called Jack Daly's Life by Design: How to Lead an Exceptional Life, not by accident, but by design, while not costing you momentum in growing your business. And I've been speaking on that topic ever since the book came out. And in fact, over the next 30 days, I have about 11 speaking gigs on that particular topic alone. But before I get into that, and I produced a handout here for today's presentation, I'm going to be your guide along 2 or 3 pages of that handout. But too many business people will not listen to me on how to have this exceptional life because they've got blockage on, well, wait a second, I've got a lot of things that I need to do in my business first. And so I'm not asking you to give up the business. I'm not asking you to put your life before your business. I'm saying they can run concurrently. And the first page in the handout is called Taking Care of Business. And as I go through a few bullet points here, for those of you that have been a part of Cameron's COO group here, an awful lot of this could sound familiar because I know we play from the same pages in a playbook. So what I've learned being a CEO and entrepreneur is that too many leaders are too involved in the day-to-day. And if you're too involved in the day-to-day, you're stuck in the weeds. You can't see over the weeds, and thereby you can't find the opportunities. In addition to that, the more things that you take on personally in the business, the less time that allows you to focus on the things that are outside of business. And gosh darn it, we only have one life to live. And I say, why not live it at an exceptional level? And my friend Cameron, if you're following him at all on social media, is doing exactly that. So 3 big things from a leadership standpoint that you've really got to nail down. And the first one is vision. Now, Cameron will talk about a vivid vision, and I'm in on that big time. I'm not talking about a business plan. I'm not talking about the mission. I'm not talking about the values of the company, all of which I treasure. What I want to know from my business clients, what I want to know from my leaders of those companies is, what is it you're trying to build? What does it look like in the future? First order of business is understanding what is it you're trying to build. And Cameron might articulate that as a vivid vision. what I do is I project what I want that company to look like 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, whatever time period you want. And once you've got that vision, you've got to communicate it all of the time and communicate it with passion, with commitment, with authenticity. That sometimes I forget the company that exists today because I lived in the vision and pull the rest of the organization with me to the vision. The second thing that's important is key people in key spots. I, as a leader of a company, can't do it on my own. So what I need is I need a number of people that are key to the organization. And when we talk about, and my specialty is growing the revenue line, when we talk about growing that revenue line, the key position is whoever's running the sales organization. I don't care whether you call them the chief revenue officer or the EVP of sales or sales manager. But here's what I can tell you. Small to medium-sized companies tend to stay small to medium. We don't have a lot of companies that break out with dramatic growth. And one of the reasons they don't is because they're guilty of committing one or more of what I call the 3 sins of sales management. And those sins are the CEO, owner of the company, also wearing the hat of the sales manager. If we have that structure, then what we have is that we have a structure where we're growing the company part-time, because every moment that the business owner is wearing the owner CEO hat, they're not wearing the hat of the sales manager CRO, which is, if you want to grow your sales in most businesses, grow your sales force in quantity and quality. Now, the second sin that I see in the sales management area is that we take our best salesperson and we elevate them to the sales manager position. What often happens is you lose your top salesperson and get a mediocre sales manager in the trade. They're entirely different skill sets. Then the third sin is where we take the top salesperson, make them the sales manager, and say, continue with your book of business. And now I have no idea how that person's supposed to be successful. Small to medium-sized companies tend to be making those mistakes on the revenue side of the house, and they are blowing it on this particular line, which is key people in key spots. And if you hire the right person and you pay them correctly in that chief revenue officer position, they should pay for themselves in the first year with the increased business that's generated by them and their team. The third key position in the company from the standpoint of what we need to do as leaders is we have to focus on the culture of the company. Building a winning culture. And for me, that is a culture where people get up in the morning and want to go to work as opposed to feeling that they have to go to work. And that distinction makes all the difference in the world. I've got it down to 4 legs of a strong culture: recognition systems, communication systems, personal and professional development processes, and empowerment. And if we can put our arms around those 4 ingredients, then we're on to success. Now, 2 basic foundations. These foundations will help you break out and allocate more time to have the time of your life. The first one is a word that I learned long ago when I was a teenager. I have been practicing this word ever since. The word is called leverage. Now, leverage is nothing to do in this example with debt and rolling the debt and getting returns. Here is my definition of leverage when it comes to what I'm talking about. How can I generate more business with less work? How can I make more money with less work? And so I'm going to show it to you in a salesperson situation, but I could put it through any role in the company. If I were to take a salesperson and look at how they spend their time, what I want to know is, what are they doing on the high payoff activities, HPAs. What are the high payoff activities for a salesperson? Now, in order to define what a high payoff activity is for a salesperson, you have to first define the job of a salesperson. Here's my definition very simply. Win new customers, grow the ones you have, and differentiate yourself from the competition. Now, what is it that a salesperson does in your organization that wins new customers and grows the ones they have? The next part of this exercise is, what else are they working on? And I call that other. Now, interestingly enough, if you'll notice how I've depicted this on the flip chart, what we do is we go into companies and we find more than 50% of a salesperson's time is being spent on the right-hand column. And so our advice is to get rid of this. And if you would get rid of this, you can then move the salesperson's time over to the high payoff activities. In effect, you could 2x your sales with no increase in salespeople just by getting our people to be focused here. And so I say there are 3 ways to get rid of the right-hand column. One is you can outsource it. Second, you can get someone inside the company to do it. And the third, one of my favorites, is you could just stop doing it. And if we were to do this one takeaway from today, and we were to take a variety of positions throughout the company and really distill down what are the high payoff activities, you're going to find that you will generate more business with less work and have more time to allocate to the personal side of life, and that is getting a life. Now, here's the dilemma. We're all starting the week with the same number of hours. I'd encourage you to remember that number, 168. Now, 168 hours is just math. That's 24 hours a day times 7 days. But we don't get 168. We've got to sleep. Now, if you're sleeping 8 hours a day times 7 days, you've lost 56 of the 168 right out of the chute. Then we've got to eat. Then we got to exercise. Then we have family. And all of a sudden, what happens is this 168 becomes somewhere between 40 to 60 hours each week. You better be sure, if there's a salesperson, that they are spending it in the left-hand column. And I would tell you that each one of these exercises can be done with each position in the company. And if you were to do that and get manically focused on this left-hand column on high payoff activities, again, it frees you up. So I coined a phrase that's very often cited by an awful lot of people these days, and it goes like this. If you don't have an assistant, you are one. Let me describe another way of saying that. There are things that need to be done in sales, but not necessarily done by the salesperson. So that is leverage for me. Now, the second foundation that I add to this party is this: systems and processes. 2 words, at least in the sales side of the house, we very, very rarely hear. Systems and processes, systems and processes, systems and processes. Let me take you back to one of my companies. The largest sales force that I had was 2,600 salespeople. We were operating in over 100 locations in the United States, and I spent 3 out of every 4 weeks traveling around and visiting the offices. One of the messages that I always delivered was the following: there aren't 2,600 best ways to sell this stuff. What do you say we find the best practices, build the systems and processes, practice the systems and processes, and I bet you we beat the pants off of any of our competitors. I live here in Southern California. Now, I got to tell you, when I grew up on the East Coast in the Philly area in 1985 with a wife and 2 kids, and getting on an airplane and coming here for one reason, and that was to consistently good weather. I brought 3 people with me, and we started building our company, just 4 people. All organic growth, no acquisitions. 18 months later, we were 750 people in 22 locations. And in our first 3 years, we made $42 million in profits. And one of the keys was this concept: systems and processes. You see, sports teams are run better than most businesses. That should really irritate anyone that's on the program today. Sports teams are run better than most businesses. I don't care what the sport is. It could be played on a field. It could be played on a court. It could be played on the ice. I don't care. I don't care what level it is. It could be high school. It could be college. It could be professional. But what I can tell you is there isn't a coach in any sport at any level that would consider putting their players on the field without a playbook, without the systems and processes that will enable them to win more than they lose. I can also tell you there isn't a coach in any sport at any level that would consider putting their players on the field without proper preparation, training, and practice. Well, about 10 years ago, I brought this book, Hyper Sales Growth, to market. It became an instant bestseller, and it has gone on to be a classic bestseller ever since then. My phone lit up with people saying, I want you to help me grow my company like you talk about in this book. And I said, perfect. And the easiest way for me to do that is for me to know how you currently sell today. And the easiest way for you to tell me how you currently sell today is just send me your sales playbook. Here's the sad news. For every 100 companies that called, 2 on average could send me their sales playbook. 98 out of 100 companies do not have a sales playbook. If you don't have a sales playbook, what that means by default is each of your salespeople is selling their own way. So if I wanted to learn from the sports team analogy, here's what I tell you. They do 3 things incredibly well, and we in business really fall down on the mark. Here's the 3. 1, they've got a playbook. 2, they practice. They practice. Now, if you don't like the University of Alabama football team and you don't like Nick Saban and what he did with that team over the years, I'll respect that. But I hope that you would respect the fact that they won a significant amount of championships nationwide. And here's what I can tell you that Nick Saban said. He said, for every game we play, we practice 100 hours for each game. And then he followed it up with this, and that's still not enough. So what I would challenge you with on your sales side of the house is, how often are your salespeople practicing? How are they practicing? Where are they practicing? And my guess is, in the majority of time, they're not practicing at all, which means they're practicing on real deals. And if you don't schedule the practice, guaranteed it will not get done. And so no matter what you choose to do in life, the very best people got to be good at it by practicing. So once again, 3 things that sports teams do better than businesses. 1, they've got a playbook, and they are committed to that playbook. The second is they practice. And the third is they have a coach on the field interacting with the players belly to belly, face to face. The coach is not sitting in an office. They're not sitting behind a computer screen. They are in the field with their people. And that's exactly what we need to be doing with our folks, because that's the only way we know how to take them to the next level. Well, before I move on to Life by Design, I want to cover one more piece. It's not on the page. but I want to recommend one of the most impactful books ever in my life. This book is now about 16 years old. And my guess is if you've been with COO Alliance, that you've probably come across this book by now. But the book is entitled Mindset. And it's written by a woman by the name of Carol DeWick. Basically, here's the essence of it, and I do injustice trying to summarize the book in just a moment or two. But here's the deal. Human beings come into one of two categories. We're either a growth mindset person or a fixed mindset person. And the beauty of this is we're not born into one of those mindsets. We actually get to choose that mindset, and we can choose it at any stage in time in our life. And so what is the difference between a fixed mindset person and a growth mindset person? A fixed mindset person looks at events that take place outside of them and say, here is why I'm not moving the ball down the field. Here is why I'm not achieving the success that you're expecting. Here are the reasons why I can't do something. It's the economy, it's the pandemic, it's the competition, it's supply chain issues, it's interest rates, it's a recession, it's technology, it's a better price. All the fingers are going this way. The growth mindset person is involved in the exact same situation, but looks at obstacles as opportunities. Looks at life and says, how can I make this a win for me when so many other people are bowing out? And if I gave you a current example today, the Fed just moved interest rates down for the first time in 4 years yesterday by 0.5 point. But if we went back 2 years ago, 30-year fixed rate home mortgages in the United States, you can get that loan for about 3%. Today, it's going to cost you about 7%. The majority of salespeople and executives in that mortgage industry have been jumping off of tall buildings saying, my business is over. I can't do these loans because no one will do a loan at 7%. Well, that's just hogwash. It is a story that you tell yourself full of negativity. And I know for a fact that people will do loans at 7% to get into a home, because when I first got into that business as a salesperson, 30-year fixed rates were 17.5%. And I watched the same phenomena. And so what was the difference? The difference was the mindset, the 6 inches between our ears. So when you're looking at the page that I just went through, think of it in terms of, if you see hurdles in your company, if you see reasons why, well, I don't know whether we could do that, and we're small, or we're too size here, or this, we don't have the budget, all of those things, those are fixed mindset reactions. What you want to do is you want to transport that 6 inches between your ears and make it work for you. Figure it out. That's my motto my whole life. Figure it out. As a speaker in April of 2020, we're all in lockdown. And so I can't get anywhere because planes aren't flying. I can't meet people in ballrooms because the ballrooms are shut and everybody's been told to stay in their house. But what I came to the conclusion was, if people needed me at any stage of my life to teach them how to deal with selling in a pandemic, this was the moment. And so I hired a crew to come into my house during the month of April and build this studio that I'm broadcasting from, with cameras and with professional lighting, professional screens, and everything else. And 2 months later, in June of 2020, I set a Guinness World Record for the largest business conference virtually done, of 21,261 people. And at that particular moment in time, I was 71 years old. And yet I found a way to figure it out. And the beauty of this was this: while most speakers' income went down during the pandemic, mine more than doubled, because I refused to do a lot of gigs by traveling and staying in hotels. I'd have no life. And so what I said was, I'm only going to speak about 80 times a year. That was pre-pandemic. But since I was able to do it from my home and do it virtually, I averaged 17 speaking gigs a month for a good 2 years during that period of time. And I made those sessions 4 hours. I made it convenient to me, somewhere between 6 a.m. and noon California time, and my clients adjusted accordingly. I then grabbed a lunch at noon and then went out and played golf in the afternoon and got a lot better than I was. And my income doubled. And I attribute the success of what I took you on that journey to mindset. And so Carol DeWitt is the author. Grab that growth mindset, look at situations that are causing you challenges, turn them into opportunities, and use this phrase, figure it out. Now that we got that business out of the way, let's go to the next page. And on the next page, you'll see 4 or 5 squares, depending upon how you look at that page. But I see these 4 squares, and I want to tell you a bit of a story about them. The oldest of 5 kids, and at best, we were middle income. 5 kids, 2 parents, 1 toilet in the house. And my dad worked 7 days a week, 6 days a week, went 1 day at home, and there he is. And hardly ever was he able to do anything other than put food on the table and clothe his kids. In fact, my brother Joe, 3 years younger than I am, I don't think he ever was bought new clothes. He just got Jack's hand-me-downs. Well, at 13 years old, I went off to the golf course that was a private country club about 5 miles from our home. And I said, I want to be a caddy. And I thought I knew what the job of a caddy was. Carry the clubs, find the ball, clean the ball, break the trap, tend the pin. And all of those things are the job of a caddy. But what I realized after my first week on the job was this is an amazing opportunity. You see, there were people in their 30s and 40s and 50s, younger than my dad, and they were playing golf on Wednesday. That was a work day from my world. They were playing golf on Friday. The same people on Wednesday were playing on Friday and playing on the weekend. And when they arrived, I took the plugs out of the car, and their cars were recent vintage. They were new cars. They were Porsches. They were BMWs. They were Mercedes. I had a 9-passenger station wagon with hundreds of thousands of miles on it, spent most of the time in the garage. And the light bulb went on, and I said, there are people living a better life. And if I could choose the life that I want, well, I wouldn't choose the one my dad has. I would choose the life that those guys are having. And if my dad knew how to do that, I would expect him to have taken action and told me how to do it, but he didn't know. So I decided that I would interview these successful people. You see, I had them at my side for 4 hours, and I made up these questions, and I figured out what holes to ask the questions on. Par 3s, no questions, 2 short of a hole. A par 5 is a long, deeper question. Par 4s are shorter questions. And I want you to envision me asking you these questions like, how did you become so successful? What were the top 5 things that caused you to enjoy that success? If you ran into hurdles that you ran into in your life, what were those hurdles like, and how did you deal with those hurdles? What would you tell a 13-year-old to do? What would you tell them not to do? And so I got this battery of questions. And then I want you to imagine going into the clubhouse after the 18 holes with Jack the caddy. You see a friend of yours sitting at the bar, and you go, hey, you ever had that Daly kid carry your bag? Oh, shit, did he ask you the questions? And everyone in the club seemed to know me. They all wanted me to carry their bag, find out what I'm going to do with the questions. Here's the deal. I heard the same thing by so many people. And I said, there's one of the keys to success. Here's what I heard over and over and over again. You got to have goals. They got to be in writing, so they don't qualify as goals. Don't pick too many, because if you pick too many, you'll dilute your personal resources. Get a date or some kind of indicator when they're going to get completed. and share them with as many people as possible to increase the pressure on you. I'm going to use my word today, accountability. And so there I was at 13, and I said, I'm 13 years old. What am I going to look like when I'm old at 30? Because at 13, 30 seemed really far away. And by the way, here I am today at 75, and 30 looks really far away once again. Well, what I said is, what do I want to look like in these 4 boxes? For example, what am I going to look like financially by the time I'm 30? What's my annual income going to be? What's my net worth going to be at 30? The next thing I said is, what am I going to look like professionally? And what I said is, by the age of 30, I want to be a CEO of a company. I wanted it to be national in size, and I wanted it to be in the money business. The third area was, what did I want to look like education-wise? And the fourth was, what do I want my family to look like? Am I going to be married by 30? Am I going to have kids? And I marked these things down. Now, Cameron and I have been around each other for close to 2 decades now. And I got to tell you, for me at 13, standing here at 75 years old, that was my vivid vision. And once I had my vision, all I needed to do was work it backwards. What do I need to do between 29 and 30, 28 to 29? What do I need to do in each of those boxes between 13 and 14 years old? Well, I got married at 2 months shy of 20. My wife's name was Bonnie, and we had a tremendous, loving relationship. Our journey went on for 52 years. And in 2017, I lost her to pancreatic cancer. I don't wallow in the negativity of losing the love of my life. I am enriched and grateful for 52 years of what an incredible woman and partner I had in life. But I can tell you, in the early years of our marriage, in our early 20s, we were catching up on each other in terms of what it was like growing up in our respective houses. And what we found is, we found a commonality, a similarity. And that similarity was this: in Bonnie's house, her mom and dad were always talking about all the things they were going to do when they retired. And in my house, my mom and dad had the same discussion. When we retire, we're going to do A, B, and C. When we retire, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Well, both of our dads passed away around the age of 50. And those dreams did not come true. And it's amazing to me. For example, I am speaking next Tuesday in Mexico City. I've got somewhere around 1,000 people in that audience. And I'll probably ask this question of them: by a show of hands, how many of you would like to be more successful than you are already? Well, there's going to be at least 1,000 hands up in that room. I know, because I've done it before. Some people put 2 hands up. But if I leave the stage with a mic and grab one person after another and say, share with me, share with the group, what is success to you in your life? What happens is we get crickets. If you don't know your destination, you have no clue on how to get there. If you don't know where you're headed, if you don't know what success is, no one can come out of the woodwork and help you. But the more you're clear about what success, get about the business side right now, what is success for you in your life? Having a moment in time where you pass away, and right before you say to yourself, I had the time of my life, no regrets. I've checked so many boxes. And so I sat down during the pandemic and I wrote this book. And this book is Jack Daly's Life by Design. I'm not trying to sell you a book here. In fact, there is a website called jackdalyslifebydesign.com. And half of this book is the appendix with all of the templates that I've used since I was 13 years old, all the way up to today, filled in as examples and blank templates for you to print out and go through the process of designing your life. And so the next page in your workbook or handout is the process. And what I'd like to do is just give you a quick journey here, and then I'll pass it back over to Cameron. The process. Where are you right now? Where are you with your health and fitness? And I ask in the book a half a dozen questions to assess where you are in terms of your fitness level. Well, what is it like in your family? Are you happy with it on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being superb family relationship? Or is it a 3 and you've got a lot of work to do? Financial, leisure, sport, spiritual growth, business, career, and friends. How are you doing and where are you? You see, we need a start point in order to design where we want them to be and then craft the path. The next thing that the book will take you through, or the website, is a process to identify what are your personal values. For example, some of us that are joined us here today, you could have a very high need on the spiritual side of life. Well, I respect that. I can also tell you that that particular box for me, I don't have as high a bar as most. And so what are your values? What are the things that you care the most about? Now, once you understand where you are and your values, you can then start going through the process. What is it? What are your lifetime goals? How about your 5-year goals, your 6-month goals? I'm just going to pause there at 1-year plan. If you were to run into me on the road, no matter where I am in the world, you will find that I am carrying this booklet. Now, this booklet happens to be a year at a glance. And inside of the front cover are my personal goals. I don't expect you to read these over the screen, but these are everything that I want to accomplish in 2024. If you want to see them up close, you can just go to one of 2 websites, jackdalysales.com or jackdalyslifebydesign.com. And I post for the world to see my goals. Now, in addition to posting it onto my website, which increases accountability, I also provide this to 5 people that I call the board of directors of my life. And I say to them at the first week of the year, I thought long and hard what I want to accomplish in the personal side of my life this year, and this is it. So could you take 4 times a year, one-on-one with me? We'll just go to lunch, we'll bring this, and check the boxes and see how I'm doing. 5 people, 4 times a year, that's 20 one-on-ones on the personal side of my life. There isn't a month that goes by where somebody isn't holding me accountable. I carry it in this calendar because every day I write down every single thing I do that day that relates to the personal goals of my life. And at the end of each month, I have my high payoff activities, the most important things in getting to be the life by design. And a month-by-month tracking is how I'm progressing or regressing. And I can look at where I was the last year for a year-to-year, month-to-month lookup. Now, am I suggesting that anyone gets to that level? Absolutely not. That is evidence of a very sick human being. But if I could get you from where I normally find you, which is this blank page, and move you over to something like this, I'm going to declare success. And so we have one life to live. Why not make that life exceptional? That's where I come from. Now, bucket list. I don't want to leave the group without challenging you to have a bucket list. I've had one since I was in my 20s. I used to call it a life list, everything I wanted to do in life before I checked out. And then the movie came out and called it bucket list. And I said, that's even sexier. So I'll call it a bucket list. Let me tell you that on jackdalyslifebydesign.com, you can go see my bucket list. Here it is in print. There's over 400 items on my bucket list, and over 80% are complete. And so I'm having the time of my life. I've run a marathon in all 50 states. It was on my bucket list. I've run a marathon in all 7 continents. Yes, that includes Antarctica. I've run 100 marathons. I've done, I played all of the top 100 golf courses in the United States. I flew a jet fighter plane with no flying instructions. That was really cool because I had a YPO member go to my website. He saw my bucket list. He sent me an email and said, hey, have you flown the jet fighter plane? And I said, no, I haven't gotten that done yet. He said, I bought a jet fighter plane from the U.S. Air Force. Here's a picture of it. And then we just need to figure out where to meet, and I'll let you fly it. And so we met just outside of LAX, and he flies in, gets out. His name's Wei Chen, and he's about 6'4". He hands me this blue helmet, and he puts me in the back and behind him in the cockpit. There's room for 2 of us. We're talking to one another, and we did all of these aerobatics, and then he handed the controls over to me, and there is a photo of me flying a jet fighter plane. Now, there's some crazy stuff that I've done in my life, and it's all in the book, and it's all because I put it out there to the universe, and people showed up and said, let me help you with this, let me help you with that, let me help you with this. But people can't help you with your bucket list. They can't help you with your 1-year plan, your life plan. No one can help you if you don't know where you want to go with this life. And so, look, I'll throw some things out there that are on my bucket list that if anybody that's on the broadcast today wants to help me out, I'm open arm for you to help me out. Let me tell you some of the things I've still got left. I want to carry the Olympic torch. I can tell you the next Olympics here is going to be here up in LA in the Summer Olympics. I'm pretty sure that I'll be carrying the Olympic torch. I've got enough connections in Southern California. I've yet to play Augusta in Georgia. So anybody that can get me on Augusta, I'm all over that. I want to meet a president of the United States in the Oval Office, but I don't want to be on a group tour. And I want to also fly on Air Force One and run with the Bulls in Papelona. That's just a sampling of things that have yet to get done. Let me wrap this up because I'm looking at the clock and I know that we want to be on time here. Simon Sinek, and most of us know Simon's name by these days. He and I are long-term, really good friends. And when I penned this book, I sent him the first edition and said, hey, be direct with me, be honest with me. What do you think? And he wrote me this just heartfelt note. And I went back to him and I said, hey, is there any way that I can take a piece of that and put it on the cover of the book? And so I'm going to close by just sharing with you what Simon's few comments were. Thank God Jack Daly exists. For decades, we hired Jack to teach us how to sell better. Yet all the while, what he was actually teaching us was how to be better human beings. I lost the love of my life on November 11th, 2017. I don't wallow in it. I'm grateful for those 52 years that Bonnie and I shared. Would I like it to have been different and have her still in my life? Absolutely. But All of my close friends and relatives, after she passed away, came to me and said, Jack, I know it's hard, but I got to tell you, she led an amazing life. One life to live, gang. Don't spend it all on the business. There's something way more important. That is life itself. Cameron, thanks for carving out the time for me today.
Jack, you're amazing. If do you have time for some Q&A for about 10 or 15 minutes?
Got nowhere to go. I'm here at home.
Sweet. You and I first, well, I first saw you speak in 1998 in Florida at a barter conference, and was blown away with your content on sales. Then over the years, you started to talk about culture and building these world-class cultures and companies. And now the whole, lifestyle by design, and you're the master at it. I mean, I've always been in awe of everything you've done. I know we've got a bunch of people that are on the call today that have got questions around sales, but I also want to open it up for, clearly anything you covered on today. I guess one question I've got is, how have you seen, and then we'll open it up for our group. If you want to throw your hands up in Zoom, we'll take the questions in order. Jack, how have you seen sales change now with, AI and with automation and with all the tech stack? And then second part of that is, what's fundamentally always going to be the same regardless of technology when it comes to sales?
That's so precious, because my audiences seem to be getting younger and younger on the sales side of the house, and I keep getting older. And every once in a while, I have somebody early on pop off, and they ask the question this way, Ken: has sales changed? And I know what they're saying is, when's the last time you were out in the marketplace? Do you even know what it's like to sell in today's marketplace? I know that's what they're doing. So I now put that up on the front end when I do a sales presentation. Answer to the question is, sales has absolutely changed, and it absolutely has not. So real quick, the things that haven't changed on sales. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I can absolutely guarantee you, people do business with people they trust. That's the way it was 30 years ago. I think it's more important today, trust, because of all of the noise that we've gotten through social media and a variety of outlets where everybody has a voice and they talk as if they know what they're talking about. And so, can I trust the salesperson? Selling, at the end of the day, is the transfer of trust. People do business with people they trust. So that has not changed. Second thing, people 30 years ago did business with people they like. Not changed. If I don't like you, I will not buy from you. But one of the things that the very top salespeople know is that people are different. And as a result, they're like chameleons, and they morph into being more like the person they're calling on. And so what is the style of the person that you're trying to gain business from? And can you be more reflective and be more accommodating to their style? So I'm a hard driving guy. That's my style. Well, I'm going to blow out an amiable if I don't temper myself down. And if my product and service is the exact thing they need, but they're not going to buy from me because I am this raging bull, then I need to discontinue being the raging bull so they can buy from me. So those are the things I would tell you that are top of mind, not changed. What has changed? What has changed is technology. If you're not leveraging technology as a salesperson, you are going to get smoked, and big time. Years ago, you went on sales calls and asked questions like, "Well, what's the business about, and what do you sell?" And all these questions that you can get the answers to about the company, about the person, through LinkedIn, through Facebook, through social media, through going to the website. Are the salespeople in your organization doing their homework before the call, so that you can go from that base and ask more penetrating questions that show that you've done your homework? I have no time, and most don't, for salespeople that haven't done the job before they arrive at the call. And then the second thing I can tell you is that I used to have a trunk of my car with moving boxes with manila files in it, with my notes in there about what the client was like and the things that I know about them. And I look at that before I went in on a call. Today, we have contact management software that's sitting in here. We can pull anything out instantly. We can do so much in leveraging technology. The salespeople, for the most part, are way behind where they need to be in that regard. And it's something that we push very strongly. But again, it's up to the individual to take the initiative. Do not wait for your company to make it happen. All of these things you can have, it can take place on your own. Take the initiative.
Love it. Thank you. Dan Elliott, you got a question.
Yeah, Jack, thanks so much, man. This has been a fantastic presentation. For when you are looking at high payoff activities, your HPAs, how do you suggest you define those? Because you have some sales managers and some reps who could potentially look at one activity and they think it's high payoff, but it's not always revenue. It's not always, sometimes there's admin stuff that could be a payoff, right? Like, where do you draw the line, or what suggestions do you have on defining a high payoff activity?
Yeah, so Dan, it's a great question, and here's I'll take a little bit of issue with you. As soon as you threw the word admin in there, that's not going to make it for a high payoff activity for me, right? Look, I'm nervous every time I do one of these virtual broadcasts because I'm in the studio at home by myself, and I don't own a laptop. I don't own a computer. I don't own an iPad. I barely know how to function with this phone. The concept of cutting and pasting. I think you still need scissors in a jar. Okay, so if you ask me to update my contact management system, then what I'm really good is making a cold call and warming it up such that the rest of the competition says, well, you'll never get through the gatekeeper with that guy. I know how to do that. That's a joy in my life. I've had these skill sets since I was 12. At 12 years old, I took a newspaper out of 32 customers. A year later, it was 275 customers. I didn't want to deliver papers anymore. So I hired 5 kids under 12 years old. I split the 275 papers amongst them and had them deliver it. And then I kept 70% of the money and they did all the work. But delivering of the papers would be a non-HPA for me. But the mindset of a lot of people in the newspaper business would have been, well, that's a critical thing that I need to do because the customer to pay me has to get the paper. It doesn't mean I have to do it. So I'm forever looking on ways to not do it. If I look at the handout from today, the cover sheet, if I tried to do that on a computer, I think it might take me a year. And it still would be a piece of garbage. But I can give it to somebody else and they'll get it done in maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So it's how do we leverage the 168 and be very, very busy. You got to be massively diligent about not doing things. I refuse to do things. Let me go to you on the personal side. When Bonnie and I, right before we got married, I said, look, we're very different people, and I think that's part of the attraction. So let's promise not to change each other or try to change each other, because I don't think that's going to work. And so let me tell you as an example, I will never have a toolbox. I will never hold a hammer or a screwdriver. I will never do anything around the house. Now, I'm not saying you have to do it, because I'll always figure out how to make money in order to outsource it. And does that work for you? And Bonnie said, yeah, that works for me. And I said, you're giving me too quick an answer. So let me describe it in a little bit more detail. Let's say you want to have the dining room repainted. And you go out and you get a couple bids, and it's $2,000 to get the dining room repainted. And you said to yourself, well, if you go down to Lowe's, buy a couple cans of paint, rollers and brushes, and on a Sunday I could paint the sucker and get it done for a couple $100. Well, that's great, but just understand that I'm going to be in the room adjacent in the family room on a Sunday with a beer, watching a football game, hooting and hollering and cheering. I don't want you in there with your roller gun hey, that son of a bitch is over there having a good time while I'm in your painting the dining room. Because I'm telling you before we even get started, I ain't never going to do it. So I never had done anything around the house in the 52 years that Bonnie and I spent together. That's drawing the line. And there are things that need to be done in life, but not necessarily done by you. So as a speaker, I have more free time than most speakers, and I make more money than most speakers. But one of the things is I have 5 assistants that are working out of their home doing things. One's been with me 20 years and lives less than an hour drive, and I've seen her less than 20 times in 20 years. So it's all about leverage for me. Great question.
Love that. Awesome. And yeah, Jennifer's been incredible. Taylor.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for a lot of inspirational thoughts and things we can do. You listed 3 things, the sins of a CEO, and any suggestions on how you get a CEO? And I'll speak personally, it's my company. My CEO is really good at sales. And if I could grade that person on other skills as being the CEO, they're way better on the sales side than the other side. How do you get that person to transition away from being the only dominating sales and becoming the CEO? Or do you just say, hey, you be the CEO and I'll find people to do the other stuff?
Yeah, I'm going to take a different approach, Taylor, and suggest that, people ought to play in the sandbox is their sweet spot. And the way you're characterizing it is very short, but the way you're characterizing this individual, I think they ought to go make it rain. That's what they do well. That's their sandbox they like to play in. Get yourself a real CEO that doesn't want to make it rain. So as an example, I'm a kick-ass salesperson and I can make it rain. But what my joy button really comes from when I am a business owner is being the CEO, putting the pieces of the puzzle together, living in the future and bringing the organization along with me, creating that winning culture. The 3 things that I talked about are my sweet spot, and they are way, way bigger for the company than me to be a hotshot sales guy. But I love hotshot sales guys. I just know that I have a higher purpose. So if your CEO today really is more aligned with being a top salesperson, I think you may have the wrong CEO.
Love that. Dave Birdsall.
Thanks for the content today. I had a question on how we should align the sales plan. We have a lot of activities that in the short term will pay our reps money, but maybe they're not aligned with the big long-term goals of the firm. So if you could speak a little bit on basically how we deal with the housekeeping that needs to get done and aligning our reps to those big hairy deals and those big hairy HPs.
Yeah, I'm not shying away from the question, Dave. But if you went to the doctor and said, I'm sick, and he said, here, drink this, I don't know that you're going to take it down. I think you want the doctor to ask you a bunch more questions. I don't know that this is the format for that. So I'm opening this up to everybody that's on the call. My direct email is jack@jackdaly.net. jack@jackdaly.net, and Daly is D-A-L-Y. Tell me that you were on today's broadcast and what your question is. I'll come back at you. We'll schedule some phone time and I'll go through and get you where you want to be in that deal.
Thanks, Jack.
Awesome. Jack, if you could send over to Meredith your pricing for your speaking events, any of the consulting stuff, and any of the key resources that you'd like us to share on the sales side. We've already started to share your bucket list and your Life by Design, your website we've shared. I'll be sharing the YouTube channels, but any of the core things around sales would be really helpful. We'll make sure that all the members that were on the call today get it, and all the 100 plus that were not on today's call get it as well.
Yeah, that's cool. Just be aware, Jennifer left yesterday for vacation for a week. And I'm not going to do that because that's not a payoff activity for me. But when she gets back, I will make it happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack Daly. Thanks so much. Everybody go off mute. Give Jack a big round of applause. Thanks so much for coming. Appreciate it.
You bet. See ya.